former Prime Minister?
Well, I think that I would have already issued, well, made comments on the Voice of Barbados program on it, and just to reiterate, first of all, to extend deepest condolences to his wife, children, and the extended the siblings and the extended Arthur then family. Mr. Arthur was, of course, the longest serving Prime Minister of Barbados, made a tremendous contribution and has left an indelible mark, both in terms of his political activities as leader of the Barbados Labour Party, his governmental service as head of government, and previously as well serving, I believe, in the Ministry of Finance as parliamentary secretary under the Tom Adams administration, and then of course as an academic, professional economist, and a member of academia, where he would have made several contributions across the university system and of course to Barbados and Jamaica and the wider region, and of course eventually the world as well. And so I think for that outstanding life of service, public service, it was only fitting that those of us who could make it should come and pay our respects to him in a place where he would have executed many of the ideas and policies that we would have conceptualized and thought of over the years in which he served in the Parliament, which of course spanned, I believe, almost 3 decades. So it felt, it's a kind of bittersweet moment. Bitter in the sense that it's sad to see him go, since we know he had so much more to contribute and was contributing it as, right up until his passing. Of course, he and I sat on the Prime Minister's Special Jobs and Investment Council, so I would have had the opportunity to interface with him on a more regular basis than the average person, I presume. And even then, he was as sharp as any tool in the shed, probably the sharpest tool in the shed, and contributing to that very worthwhile exercise. Over the last couple of years, both within the last year when I served as Minister of Finance, but certainly in the last 2 years, I got to know him a lot better. He would call me ever so often, very, very early on in the mornings. That was his style, 6 o'clock, have conversations about many things. One of the things that I think interests him a lot, what he was interested in, was the whole issue of trade policy, international trade policy, and of course that is my area of expertise and training. And he would call whenever he had a speech or research to do to check stuff. Of course, he already knew it. He took such a deep interest and was so widely read on the subject that he would call about WTO agreements and the EPA and other things related to trade and development, trade and environment, trade and fiscal policy, and we would have very long conversations on those issues. And I would always ask him, why you call if you already know the answer? He said, but I know that you know this, and I just wanted you to check and verify and to think out and talk out the ideas, so to speak. So I really enjoy those exchanges. And then of course he would not limit himself to that. He would go into an issue of cricket in particular. I'm not a huge cricket fan, but I learned quite a bit from him. And then of course his days growing up and so forth and so on. So those were moments that I think I would cherish. Having been in Hustings with him and back and forth, detailed politics, which could be so sharp sometimes, the commentary. But to have had the opportunity to get to know him outside of that environment was, I think, a plus for me. So I feel very good about having to come here to was, I believe in 2000, selected as co-chair of a Commonwealth Secretariat World Bank Committee on small states, and defining what are now considered to be classical attributes of vulnerabilities for small states. That was really groundbreaking work. I would have come into contact with that when I was director of CPDC, the Caribbean Policy Development Center. We would do many policy interventions, whether it be on the same small states, whether it be on trade, whether it be on fiscal policy or economic policy in terms of IMF, World Bank, structural adjustment programs, and so forth. And then latterly on issues of climate change, as those were emerging. So the work which Prime Minister Arthur would have done as chair of that, co-chair of that very important group of persons, I think is a lasting tribute to his contribution to global affairs in relation to getting people in industrialized countries, in major financial institutions, international financial institutions and organizations to understand the acute challenges that are faced by small states and the vulnerabilities that cause us not to be able to fully participate in terms of gains of international economy, of business, of trade, and so forth and so on. And you will see from that work, if you go back and read that work, that that group defined a specific set of characteristics that are now used in all of the international fora when discussing vulnerabilities of small states. Our remoteness, the small nature of our markets, the openness to trade, our vulnerability to hurricanes and natural disasters. All of those issues were properly defined, and the role which, of course, Prime Minister Arthur would have played in that particular regard